What's up, everyone? My name is Wes, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. Today's episode, I got to chat with all 5 members of Minneapolis band Hyooman. The band just released their debut album Pilot at the end of June. We talk about their direct approach to songwriting and recording, the joys of making music, the album's inspirations, and more. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Leng, Dylan, McCoy, Elise, and Victor of Hyooman on the Ear Coffee Podcast. How are you doing on this rainy Sunday, it's Monday now, July 4th? How are we doing?
Nobody knows what day it is.
I'm too much of a patriot. I can't pay attention.
Yeah.
I think we're feeling good.
Yeah, feeling all right.
We're full of Nick Cage quotes. Locked and loaded.
Locked and loaded. All right. So for the listeners at home, let's start with something nice and simple. Let's do some introductions. If you want to just introduce yourself, say your name, your role in the band, anything else you feel the spirit telling you to say, now's the time. We can just go to my left.
Yeah. So I like talking in this soothing voice in the morning.
Embody Ira Glass. Do you
So I'm Victor, and I play guitar in the band, and I'm the youngest member of Hyooman. So everyone else here is like the originals, and I'm a late addition to the band.
New kid on the block.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
This voice is Lang, and I write songs and I sing. That's it. I play guitar too. Yeah.
2 Langs left. For those of us who are not here visually, I'm Elise, and I play keyboard and I sing in the band Hyooman.
And I'm McCoy, and I play drums, and I do some of the production duties, and then I have the space that we record in. So we just finished just put out our first record that we recorded there. So that was our first experiment recording together.
Cool. Yeah. It was fun. I'm Dylan Marcus. I play bass, and that's about it that I feel like sharing.
Thank you. All right, nice to meet y'all. So I find that pretty much anyone who has made the step to make music such a significant part of their life, where they're writing, recording, putting themselves out there at shows, and all the things that come with being in a band, you probably like music a lot. You probably have a pretty close relationship with music. So often I think that it's probably been a long-standing thing. So how did each of you really first connect with music on a deeper level, where it wasn't just something that was around you, that like friends or your parents were like showing you or listening to, and something that really was yours and you connected with it? And when did you first kind of realize, oh, maybe I want to play music, I want to pick up an instrument, and kind of take those first steps that every musician takes on their way to being in a band? We can keep the same order, we can do any order.
Wow.
Sure.
Doesn't really matter. I'm cool.
Yeah, I guess for me, a friend of mine had gotten like a hand-me-down bass guitar, like a short scale harmony, and he let me use it. And then my stepbrothers at the time both had basses, and I got a guitar, and so yeah, this is Dylan talking. And I would guess I was listening to like Primus at the time. Nice. And a lot of Primus. But before that, it was like, I'd kind of fallen in love with like some, I guess, music that my parents weren't into and stuff, like Smashing Pumpkins. And then after like the Primus phase, what I'll call it, I don't know, I got into The Clash and Fugazi, and just, I guess, realized that's like the whole playing music and the power of music was just really attractive to me.
Yeah.
High school. I think high school, I liked how you phrase the question. It's not just like when I was exposed to music, right? It's not just when it's around you, like an actual intimate. I think high school, at the time when I was a churchgoer, played in like a worship band. And like a lot of people start that way. People probably still do that just for gigging, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I think I have an idea of like how to run a band practice. And then in high school, I was like, I think I want to start a band. And I just like recruited a couple of people who didn't even know how to play their instruments. So I taught them how to play.
Wow.
And then that's like when we started writing songs. I was like, okay, I'm like walking in the dark here. Never wrote a song before. And they sucked, but you still wrote them. And I was like, okay, I think I can kind of do this a little bit. That was probably my first. And I remember playing our first show at like a National Honor Society banquet or something, just totally out of place. And just like hard rock stuff.
Yeah.
And people are trying to, eat their, chicken Kiev or whatever. So I think that's probably my first experience, like intimate experience with music where it's like, okay, this is,
This is something that I want to do. This is something that I can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had a similar thing where in high school, I started playing in a band, and it was like fun, and like we started to get some gigs, and then there was like a moment where I was like, I think I have to quit the hockey team so that I can take the band fully seriously. And so that was like the big moment. I had to like tell my parents and stuff. They were like really disappointed. So that was the moment for me where I was like, I guess I'm going down this path now.
I could see your name on a hockey jersey though. Like that could have been your other path.
Yeah.
Hockey all-star.
I wasn't very good.
For me, sort of a different thing. I never played in a band until this band. So I always played music alone. But what was cool about it was that in playing piano or guitar, you can kind of do anything. Like you can explore it. You don't necessarily have to have like classical music training. It might be better if you do, but the world is kind of your oyster.
Better. It helps in some regard. Yeah.
So it's like this whole world of exploration and, being a creative person, there's so many different outlets you can go with, but music just, I don't know. You hear like, I'm a big fan of music as like probably most of us are. And you just think like, I want to do that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, probably like there were two moments like that I knew I was like, oh shit, this is a thing that I for sure want to do. And one was getting Dude Ranch when I was in 4th grade, going to Target and getting a copy of Dude Ranch and then like borrowing my sister. She had one of those little, like the CD players that were like really compact looking, like they were little, I don't know, they looked like little chunks. They weren't like the big stereo, and then had the little top loading deal. And I remember listening to Dude Ranch over and over again and being like, I need to get a Stratocaster and I need to learn how to play Damn It and all the boxes to check going forward. And then later in high school, after getting said Stratocaster, then we started a band with friends in high school, and I had the same thing. I was like, oh shit, I gotta quit playing lacrosse and start playing music. And so I quit the lacrosse team and we started playing music all the time. And
Lacrosse is so much more East Coast,
yeah.
I was out in Wyoming. We didn't have lacrosse.
Yeah. Was Minnesota the East Coast when you were in Wyoming?
Pretty much.
Did you tell people like, I'm moving to the East Coast? They're like, oh, what city? You're like, Minneapolis.
I can't believe you didn't play hockey growing up in Minnesota.
I did play hockey.
Wait a minute. In
Not
Wyoming?
everybody plays hockey growing up in Minnesota.
In Wyoming, do you usually call this the Mid-East?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the
It is eastward.
Yeah.
Right.
Although part of that was in Boston, so you're right.
Knew it.
Yeah.
Had you pegged.
Yeah.
Lots of burgeoning sports stars here that
What could have
those
been?
careers were shattered.
Yeah, no, your answer specifically spoke to me. I had a similar thing where it's like, I have to quit cross country and track so I can do band full time and become a classical saxophonist. And here we are, a podcaster. Cool, thank you. How did the band Hyooman actually form then? Because it sounds like at least you, Lang, have been in bands for a while. You were talking about touring and just doing the band thing earlier off mic. So if you even want to talk a little bit about that, but then how did this current group of people end up in this current band that just put out an album?
Sure. This band, so just speaking of the band history, I wrote an album and McCoy took over a studio called Casino Time Recording Studio in Northeast Minneapolis. Okay. So that's McCoy runs that. And I wanted to make a record with him. He's like one of my closest friends. And I was like, okay, I'm going to write an album. I'm going to record it with you. And initially it was just going to be like him and I working on a record together, like a solo project thing. But then I love bands. Like I grew up, I loved bands like more than I loved like single songwriter stuff. So I wanted to make it a band thing. And all these people in the band, like Victor, Elise, and Dylan, and McCoy too, I just knew like separately through like music stuff. So Elise and I had been friends for a long time. This is her first band, but we've been friends, and she's, played music on her own. So I wanted her to join. Dylan, I've seen him just in the Minnesota like music scene circuit. He plays in a lot of bands, but particularly he plays in a band called Jeweler.
Okay.
Yep. And I would go a lot of the shows because I was a big fan. And I was a big fan of Dylan playing in that band. He played guitar at the time, but I also knew he played bass.
Yeah, that's where you, it was at a Jeweler show at the entry that you introduced me to McCoy.
Yep. And Victor and McCoy, yeah. Victor and McCoy are also like songwriters, and I played bass in their bands individually. So Victor had a band called Junior Varsity, and I played bass for that. And then Wild Age is a band that McCoy was a songwriter for, and I played bass for that. So these are like kind of like separate things. And I thought, okay, when I have a band, it was like Avengers or something, like recruiting them to do it. Yeah. So I had the album written. So kind of not traditional. I think a lot of bands, they form and then they write songs together and then record it.
Yeah.
For this, I was like, okay, we have the songs written. Let's come to the studio and let's like work on an album right away. So that's kind of the origin story, I think.
Yeah.
Unless anybody wants to add anything.
It was hard to execute that montage in real life, though, to have each of us come together to get the whole gang together in real life. Like the movie, we had to time that really well.
Yeah, that's true. If everyone it released an individual album and then at the end you have an end credits where it leads into the Avengers or Hyooman, that would have been kind of neat. But that would have taken like 10 years.
A little bit longer than. Well, actually, I don't know. I don't think that hard about the MCU anymore. So this is foreign thoughts to my brain. Cool. So with the album, actually, before we get into that, I want to talk about the song Half Brain. That at least release schedule wise predates the album, just like a one-off kind of lead single. Talk a little bit about creating that song. When did you write that? How did you all kind of come into the fold for that track? And also, what about that song made it kind of feel distinct from the album, or was there even a reason why it wasn't just like track 11 or 12 on the LP, and you wanted it to be its own thing, be its own entity on Bandcamp and everything, where people will be able to find it?
I'm curious if someone else wants to take a stab at this.
Yeah, I feel like we were just talking about this the other day. And I love the story of making Half Brain because, I don't know, the song is so joyful to me. I love playing it. We made like a really fun music video for it, and that's just one of my favorite days ever that we recorded and filmed at Lang's house. But yeah, as far as I remember, Lang was like, we need to put out a single before we do this record. So he was like, boom, wrote the song like in a weekend, I think, and then was like, all right, here's your parts, or fill in what parts you need to, and then we had a song.
And it happened so quickly, and I feel like same thing with like so many things. Like the part, like if it's a good song or it feels good to the people playing it, like the parts just kind of fall into place. And that's the way Half Brain, I think, felt for me. It was just like Lang, like we had maybe 2 or 3 more songs left to record, I think, for the album. And Lang came to us with Half Brain, and it was like, he's like, yeah, we slotted this time for the studio. We didn't rehearse it much at all. We recorded it pretty much the day that like the week of him releasing the single to us. And yeah, it just formed. Things happened really fast. And then we had this, like everyone was so pent up because of just quarantine. And it was like kind of right when things like lifted and people could at least cautiously hang out with each other.
Yeah.
And so then we had this video, this filming for the single of the video. And it just was great. Like Elise said, it was very memorable, super fun time.
I'll also add, I don't know, I think I could bring it up, right? Like studio got robbed during that time, or like before.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a big blow. And then so when we recorded the song, this is after that. And people, like, again, thanks to everybody, I mean, on behalf of McCoy and the band and the studio, a lot of people we had a, what do you call it, a GoFundMe. A lot of people contributed to that, but we had borrowed microphones to record this song. But this is post, people breaking into the studio and stealing stuff. So that was a crazy, crazy thing. I don't know. I guess that's just a little piece of trivia for the podcast.
Yeah. But I liked your question about like why do it as a single rather than just like add it to the album.
Yeah, especially since you wrote it just after the album had been written, the album had mostly been recorded at that point.
And like, I don't know the answer, but my guess is like 10 is just because it's 10 tracks, right?
Yeah.
That's just such a good number, And it's like all the best albums have 10 tracks. And then also probably just like more like a utilitarian thing of like, probably good to have a single that we can put out before. But I don't know. What's the real answer?
Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Nailed it.
Read you like a book.
Yeah. It feels like thematic, like too. I don't know. Writing an album, it just, you have an album in mind. So like I just saw it in my head. I'm just me being stubborn probably, just like, oh, this is a body of work. And then writing it outside of that just felt like, oh, this is kind of a separate thing.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of cool that it exists on its own. And I kind of wanted it to do that. So Half Brain just did that. Yeah.
I kind of love when like songs that come out before or like just like kind of like the reverse chronology almost, where it's like, oh, this song came out first. It must have been written and recorded first. Not so. I love that kind of like turning it on its head, but cool, yeah.
Or just the songs that like weasel their way onto being on albums and stuff.
Yeah. But you didn't do like the pop star thing where like they release like a single, it's really successful, and then they just tack it as like the bonus track on their album to like boost streaming or whatever.
Yeah, somebody messaged us about that too, and they were like, "Why don't you just like put it a part of the album?" It's just it's too late.
Yeah,
we pressed it. It's done.
But to that point, I think you're pretty deliberate about that though. Like you're good. You always are like, oh, we just did it. But like there was a lot of thought, I feel like, behind that. And I think that's like a theme of this band in general is like Lang's a very deliberate, like, I don't think there's like some great like machination stuff going on behind, but it's like you definitely are like, you have very clear reasons, I think, and you like come up with a plan and you just like execute on it, which is I think rare in a lot of bands, like especially like local bands. A lot of the time things just kind of like opportunities come up or things are due more to like people's schedules or circumstance or whatever, and people just kind of are like, oh, well, let's just put this out because it's done, or let's put this EP out because we have these songs and we want to like keep having stuff to post. And I think that's like a kind of an interesting point that I think has been consistent throughout this whole band, is like that Lang he'll come up with a plan of something he wants to do, and then it's not like this super laser focused thing where we all have to like jump on board and go right away, but it definitely like he's good at herding people towards that.
He kind of rolls out the red carpet for us, you know?
Yeah, no, seriously.
Kind of just continuing to talk, we'll jump more into the album, talk about Pilot, which just came out about a week ago on the 24th. It's available everywhere if you haven't checked it out already. But specifically just talking about the songwriting even, since it was something that you, Lang, created just on your own well before even really forming the band, but also in light of just the process you kind of took with Half Brain, where you were able to just kind of punch that out just in such a short period of time. Was that how you approached these same songs, the same way you approached these songs for Pilot? Was it very quick, they came very naturally, or was it more of a long-going process where you were tinkering with them for a while? Like, what was the process of putting those songs together? And has that always been how you've approached songwriting specifically, as just someone who's actually like writing the lyrics, putting the bones of the songs together before letting the band in to kind of flesh everything out, add their parts, record their parts?
Yeah, I was just talking about the writing part first, and then I could talk about like the band part of it.
Absolutely.
The writing part, I think it depends on the song. Some songs came very naturally, like fast, and that could just be like circumstance, like right time, right mood.
Yeah,
to be like into a song.
The lightning strikes.
Yeah, finding inspiration is hard when you're writing. I think inspiration makes you focus. Like, okay, cool, you have ideas for it. If you don't have it, it's a very long process. But a song like Kid, for example, I took a lot of time on that, and it took that. I have like demos of that where it's just a totally different song. That took the longest. I think it took like a few days. I think I spent a whole day. This is during lockdown, by the way, so you had the time to do this. But
Were
I
all
think
these songs started kind of post lockdown?
A little
once
bit.
COVID started. Okay.
Yeah, the first song on the album, there's a song on the album called "Don't Wanna Be." That was the first song I wrote, and that was written like 2019, like December.
Okay.
Yeah, so a little bit before the lockdown. But Kid took long. I think I spent the whole day, and all I came up with was just like few lines for the chorus, like all day. Like I think it was like 11 p.m. And then I put the demo in my car. All I had was like a few words for the chorus. I was like, what a waste of a day. But I feel like that nugget helped. And I was like, okay, the song's about kid and nostalgia. It's about being a kid again. And then the next day it came really quick. So I'm just trying to paint the picture. I don't really have a good, short answer that's concise. I think it just depends on the song.
The other thing that's interesting to me is like these are like kind of like the first songs that like I feel like you weren't like writing songs for
I would always
the
be like,
majority
when
of
are
your
you
life.
gonna write music? When are we gonna hear your music?
Right. And so like Lang and I were playing in bands where I was writing songs, and where McCoy was writing songs, and Lang was always kind of like just like supporting and playing bass and being a great band member. And then just like all of a sudden, like I feel like it was like right when the pandemic happened, you just started like sending around little demos and stuff, and it was like, oh, I didn't even know Lang could write songs. And like not only that, but like usually when you start writing songs, like when I first started writing songs, they were like very bad.
You wouldn't want to send those to people.
Exactly. But Lang, like, I don't know, it was kind of shocking to me. I was like, these are so good, and it just started, So I don't know. I think that's interesting.
I sent you the good ones, but there's some bad ones. I think McCoy got some bad ones. I've definitely sent some demos. I didn't make it on the album. Go ahead.
Pre-Hyooman, I must have been like 2016 or something. You and McCoy had asked, you at least sent me 1 or 2 songs via Dropbox or something. Do you remember this?
Not 2016. I think this was probably early 2020. I think we were asking you to play guitar or something.
I feel like I still was living in the house that would have dated it that way. Anyway, maybe not. Just curious about that.
Time isn't real.
That's true.
It would have been 2019 or 2018 at least.
Yeah, which I don't know, but we go back to the writing thing.
sorry. But just thinking about the songs and the way they came up and sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. And I'll say this though, like I'll just give this piece of nugget to anybody who is listening who like is thinking about writing, like or plays in a lot of bands and hasn't done it. Like I was like very insecure about my voice, and that was the thing that was kind of like inhibiting me. And also, I tried writing before, and it just sucked. Like I was just like, okay, this isn't good. But the thing that got me started was I just started recording like on GarageBand. I just like did a cover, Mazzy Star's song "Flowers in December." So I just like recorded that, my version, like my cover, and I sang on it. I was like, I listened to it, and I was like, okay, this isn't too bad. Like I can live with this voice. That gave me the courage to be like, okay, I can actually start writing songs. Yeah. So if anybody like wants to do that, who's listening, who's like never written a song,
that's huge. Yeah,
or like singing, like my voice. Just record it. Start with the cover. You don't have to write a song yet.
Yeah, when you demoed out some of the covers that we were going to be doing, that was fun. That was a fun period because we had to fill like just a lot longer than our original music set time was, and so we added like a few covers in, and Lang demoed them out, and it was very charming. Like the your vocal and stuff, just
thanks. And then this is the last piece I wanted, the second piece of it. Like, how does a band get involved? Right. For the first album, I did demo a lot of the stuff. So by that, I mean like, you recorded bass and guitar leads and all that stuff. So it seemed like a complete song. But to me, it's just like, I always say that people are probably tired of me using this word because it's like a corporate-y word, but like proof of concept. Yeah, it's like a corporate-y business thing.
Break it out of its shackles, right?
Yeah.
The constraints.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's just like, hey, this is what it could be. I think sometimes people they need direction and they don't know it until you feel it, because that's how music is. Like it's a sensory thing. So if I describe it to them, they might have different ideas. If I'm like, oh, I'm thinking Everclear, like people might have different interpretations of that band. But if I kind of paint it for them in this kind of demo way, then I feel like it helps them a little bit more. So it's just that. It's just proof of concept, and then people can take that and like the drums, McCoy might tweak it, or the part, or Dylan might tweak the bass a different way, and then at least I didn't write a lot of the keyboard parts, so she ended up writing a lot. And Victor might write different parts. So, and then that becomes the Hyooman identity for the band.
Yeah. This is kind of a question for the rest of y'all then. Coming to Lang's songs and having these like bones of these songs to kind of give you a general idea of, okay, here's what we're thinking for a bass, a drum line, a part like that. How did you kind of find your way into these songs and add your own kind of flair, add your own creativity, and kind of make the band what it is? Because the band is the sum of its parts, I think. It's not just one person, unless it is like Kevin Parker, like Tame Paul or something. Poor phrase of words. But with these songs, yeah, how did you kind of come into them, and what was that process like? And finding a way to kind of add your own touch, add your own creativity to these songs.
Sure. I just feel like for me, when I would listen to the songs, like they were very complete. Like they could exist. I think Lang should do some extra content for some moolah. No, but the demoed out songs, like just listening through those, it was great. It was like, wow, like one after the other. It was like, these are great songs, and I'm so happy to be a part of this. He made it very clear. He's like, I asked you to be a part of this just because I want to have your take on, how you might add passing tones and things like that. And, maybe melodic content or like sub hooks or something. And so for me, like the songs, I would just take mainly the vocal melody into consideration and try to add weight to that. And then also just try to make like a interesting line from like point A to point B in a given song. Like transitions are fun for me as a bass player. And yeah, I guess working with the drum, like the constraints of like what's already happening with the drums, like filling in, just making sure that things feel like they're playing together. It's fun.
There's a lot of constraints with those drums in this band.
Oh, shoot. Come on.
Yeah, I think it's so true that Lang just had like finished songs. Like they could have just gone out as they were demoed, I feel like. But yeah, for me, I've never been like a band member playing, supporting somebody else. So I come to music more as like a songwriter. So I would just listen to Lang's awesome songs and be like, oh, this kind of reminds me of like some band, and then go and listen to like a bunch of like Semisonic or something and then be like, okay, how would that sound here? So I don't know, just try to take inspiration. That's kind of like the songwriting approach, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. And taking that same mindset and applying it just to your keys playing and adding just a supplemental songwriter's eye. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get kind of spoiled because I get to do whatever I want with these songs because I'm the one mixing them and putting microphones up and stuff. So from that angle, I think it's like I pretty much wrote them. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Where's your co-write credit?
No, I think the only one with a co-write credit in this band is Victor.
That's true.
And it was before he was even in the band.
Yeah.
He's already getting his mitts in there. No, I think for drums it's interesting because I'd never played drums in a band before playing in this band. Well, not like a band that did anything. I think I'd played in like some like punk bands in college that were just more like kind of drunk for fun late night projects. Yeah. So this was like a new endeavor for me. So I think kind of the maybe rudimentary nature of my drumming to some degree like makes things sound a certain way sometimes, especially on that first record. I would like to say that I've gotten a little bit more proficient over the past year and a half, but we'll leave that to the constantly expanding audience.
Yeah. Always room for growth.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's been fun for me because Lang and I talk a lot about music. We definitely spend a lot of our conversation over the years is certainly not limited to music, but we both we're big, like you said, you come this far playing music, you're certainly it's gonna come up in conversation quite a lot, especially when you're hanging out with your musician friends. So I think, like you've said it before, we kind of have the same language around it. So I think for me, it's been fun just kind of figuring out like how to like actually make happen what I think he's saying when he explains a part or when he puts a demo down or something like that, kind of being like, oh, well, on the demo, the drums sound like this, but I know that they're like garage band drums, and I know that like the song is kind of in this vein. So trying to kind of like pull out whatever I think he's going for. And then, you know, when I'm doing like mixing and stuff, that's been really fun because Lang is like decidedly you don't really want to approach music from a like engineering kind of standpoint. Like, so I think it's kind of fun for me because it's trying to figure out how to translate between like the more nerdy kind of, you know, like numbers based recording side of being, talking about like, oh, do you think that's too, is that compressor pumping on this? And he's like, I don't care about that. You know, it's more just like the vibes. So that's been kind of fun.
Yeah.
Long-winded answer.
No, we love that.
Yeah, I feel like there is a divide in the band where like Dylan and McCoy are like pretty intellectual about the music, and then I feel like Elise Lang and I are like, this sounds pretty good. You know, like
it comes from the heart.
Yeah.
Not
and
in my case, the mind.
It's good to have, you know, I think it helps to have both, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's definitely some conversations between Dylan and McCoy, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna leave.
We have to justify our own. Like we spend all this time learning all this dumb shit. If you don't spend some time talking about it, it's kind of like you got to justify its existence, taking up space in your brain.
Yeah, let it out. I'll be sitting there with all like my guitar, like in like producer, like or like at least I have DAWs and everything. Friends, I'm just like, I'll play jazz. I don't know what y'all are saying. Like, I'm just gonna go upstairs.
Stuff I got to do.
Yeah. So just to my ears, a lot of these songs kind of feel like short. They're like little sketches, vignettes, very self-contained. When you were writing them and putting them together, and we talk both about music and lyrics here, what was it always like kind of latching onto a feeling? Like you could talked about with Kid, where you're like, okay, this song, I've worked on this for a day. I think it's about being a kid. It's about nostalgia. Let's dive into that. Let's dive into this feeling or this kind of portrait. Was that a similar, like, is that how you approached a lot of the other songs, or was it more varied? We can totally get into the nitty gritty here. Again, long-winded answers are more than welcome.
Okay, yeah. I'll try not to be. And that's my personality. I think that's the songs. That's what they're short. Like, I don't want to be long-winded. Like, oh, we need a bridge in here. It's like, no, I don't want a bridge. Like, screw bridges. I don't know.
It kept the first time I listened to the album, I'm like, oh, there's not more? Okay, next song, let's go.
Yeah. I wanted to, I don't know. Yeah, it's just like talking to someone at a bar and they're just being really long-winded. It's like, come on, just get to the point, man. And I think that sometimes bridges are like that too. It's like, you just put the bridge in there. Like, do you even like the bridge? Like, if you don't, just take it out, dude.
Isn't that like a Seinfeld thing where like if George gets a really good laugh, he'll just like leave the party, like regardless of how long he's been there?
I think so.
Exactly.
It's just like, it's the same thing where it's like, we got in, got out, can live to fight another day.
Costanza School of Songwriting.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, but the writing and like getting to it. When I was writing for this first time, I knew I didn't want to write anything that was like, I don't know, like love or personal based type stuff. I just did, I was like, we had enough songs about like whiny guys being like, you broke my heart or something like that. So
we have like 5 waves of emo. Come on. Like, they got that covered.
Yeah. So a lot of the songs are kind of observational stuff. And I mean, part of the inspiration is like a lot of the stuff that McCoy wrote too about, just different like introspection and stuff. So the identity of each song, I was never like, okay, I want to write a song about this. And I did. They kind of revealed themselves eventually. So like the Kid one, for example, or, you write something, some words come to mind. And when you piece them together, they're like, okay, I think it's about this. And you go a little bit further and you like start fleshing it out. And you're like, actually, I think it's about this. And I'd spend a lot of time listening to the demos in my car. And I was like, I don't like this word. And I change them. So they kind of get revealed over time. I already talked about the short and concise thing, didn't I? Okay. What else was there to that question?
Just kind of more talking about how you were approaching your songs and everything. You kind of touched on that.
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of like vignettes. Yeah, so each song has their own identity. But I think as a whole, I noticed that, someone pointed out to me, like, Lang, it seems like you talk a lot about everyone and everywhere. You talk about like everyone. And
there's
also,
a lot of yous. There's a lot of second person.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I just didn't realize that. I think I'm a judgmental person, and maybe that's why the lyrics are that way.
Well, even like a song like kind of like "So Proud" isn't like, it could almost come across like a little judgmental, like because like the line, like the last kind of chorus, but it still, the song doesn't feel judgmental, which I think is kind of like a interesting like line to be walking there, because it's so easy to just fall into like the judgmental side of things, or just like have a preconceived like assessment and then just have that be kind of like the topic, instead of like, okay, how can I kind of be in the middle of this? How can I be like an observational and just I don't really know how to go.
I think originally the song was supposed to be the self-deprecating thing. It's like, now you work at the bank. It's like, I work.
Oh, it's more it's
like
self-directed.
Yeah,
okay.
It's like, oh, I work at a bank. So initially it started off like that. It was supposed to be a self-deprecating thing, and then I just thought about some person who's like so self-involved at a restaurant that they don't, they're like long-winded and stuff. And I was like, now I'm going to judge the crap out of this person that I made up in my head. And I don't know. I think there's this thing where it's like, people who are too proud. I think I was trying to create a character in my head. Like, there's got to be somebody like this in the world to like make this world worth living. So somebody who's so proud, but who has like self-awareness enough to like not sleep well at night. Because like, okay, maybe this life isn't as good as I thought it was, even though I'm a very proud person. And I think I made that person up to kind of like console myself a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes writing a song is just making up a guy to get mad at and then kind of dwelling on that.
Yeah. It sounds terrible because it's like I'm like taking pleasure in someone's misery, even though they're a fictional person. But I just like to think that people were like that self-involved, or like very selfish people. Maybe there's a hint of like humanity in there where they're like, okay, maybe this is like a good life,
Yeah,
but
like,
that's probably not true. But I had to write a song about it. I had to make this person up.
Yeah. When this is something that can be interpreted when you're talking about when you were recording these songs, but also when you're playing these songs just at any live show, when you're bringing them to life in front of people. What is something that each of you want to bring to a Hyooman song when you're playing it, when you're recording it? And beyond just like playing the part that you wrote correctly, playing like the notes right, that's obviously important, but maybe beyond that, what's something you want to kind of imbue the song with that only you can really provide in that moment, in front of that mic, in front of those people? This could be
Well, we
for
were just
everybody.
recording 2 days ago, so this is all fresh in our minds.
Good.
I don't know. It's like when you're playing a show, it's like you're there to entertain, right? So like, I think the goal is to obviously play the music well, but also to like have a good time so that the audience has a good time. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you have to have fun. Otherwise it's not fun for anybody.
Yeah, you got to keep it rolling.
Yeah.
And there is like, I guess, an element of like trying to like exude like this, I don't know, it's not an illusion, but just try to make it look effortless and fun.
Yeah.
And just like I said, like
Selling it,
keep
you're
things
being
rolling,
confident.
you know? Yeah. So I think I had a great time at our release show. Like, even though the stage was kind of weird, like very shallow stage, but like trying to move around, and like when someone has like a feature in a song or something, just like mainly I guess for my own sake, but just like really like watching them, and then also so it's projecting to the audience that's kind of a focal point. And like, I guess that's what I like to bring to a live show. It's just trying to like pass the energy and showcase my friends making the music they make.
Yeah.
I feel like this is kind of the first band I played in where I wasn't like the singer person. And so I feel like this is the first time where, I mainly just play guitar. It's the first time I had to think of like, what do I do on stage? Like, how do I
remember that conversation.
how should I act
Victor
on
has
stage?
good moves.
So I feel like I've been very like experimenting with like, okay, what do guitar players do on stage? Like we've tried I feel like sometimes Lang and I will like try to feed off each other a little bit, and like sometimes it's like kind of purposefully doing like goofy, kind of like how goofy it can be, and then we're kind of laughing, and then it's like kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's like to further like for the audience is like, are you going to be the dark broody guitar player, or are you going to be like the high energy dark? It's like fighting out the character. Like, what's my character?
Yeah, we were
What's
talking
your
about
archetype?
that.
The attributes.
Yeah, at first I really wanted to be like a dark horse, but then I don't think it works for me. I think but it does seem fun to be the dark horse, and it actually seems pretty easy. Like you can just be kind of like still.
Yeah, but you got too much potential energy stored up in those legs. The second the music starts, all of a sudden he's like levitating 6 to 8 inches off the stage. He's a constant bouncer.
Yeah.
He's got like his own trampoline over there.
Yeah.
Plus, you're the tallest person in the band, so you're really lording over everyone by doing that. I think there's some sort of subtle cues that you're sending to the rest of us.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with recording though. Like we were just recording on 2 days ago, and McCoy, we're like kind of struggling a little bit. Not that anyone has to know that, but McCoy was like, let's do some jumping jacks. Let's just loosen up a little bit. That really helps me.
That was my Rick Rubin moment. I was like, I think this would sound better if we all did jumping jacks.
And it did.
Yeah. It's kind of counterintuitive, and that's the point, really.
Yeah.
Jumping jacks don't help you like play your keyboard better or play your bass better, but maybe it will if you don't think about it.
It's good to pull your brain away for a second.
Yeah. If you're doing it while you're playing, it definitely makes it sound worse.
Yeah.
I feel that. Yeah. Continuing to kind of talk about recording, since it was at least self-engineered, self-recorded at, did you take over the studio prior to working on this, McCoy, or was this?
Okay. Yep. So it used to be, I played in a band with Lang called Wild Age for a few years. It's been defunct for a handful of years at this point, I think. But the drummer of that band, his name was August, and August had a studio called the Petting Zoo, and that he had built out and had been running for like 4 years or 5 years, and then he moved to be the engineer over at the Terrarium. And so when he was moving out of there, he was like, well, would you have any interest in figuring out something to do with this space, whether you do like a practice space situation or use it for your own intentions or whatever. I think it was probably a mixed motivation of he didn't want to have to deal with tearing all that shit down and like moving it all out. So he's like, this will be a lot easier if I can just like drop it on to a friend. Absolutely. But it worked out well for me because I'd been doing, I got a 4-track cassette recorder when I was like 16 and had just been screwing around with home recording stuff from that through like GarageBand and Logic, and got Pro Tools at some point in college, and never did it seriously in any commercial sense, but was always recording and doing stuff. And Lang actually was always really like complimentary of, I'd record demos and stuff like that, and he'd be like, dude, you should just make a record like this sounds better than like a lot of the stuff we were doing. And so I always felt like maybe one day I'll give this like a serious effort. Mm-hmm. So then when that happened, I was bartending and was kind of like, oh, I've got the bandwidth to watch 10,000 hours of YouTube and figure out like what I appreciate. Or I already knew kind of like what sounds I liked, but like how to kind of reverse engineer my way into them. And then, I changed the name of the studio to Casino Time. And I've been there for like 3.5 years now. And it's been great. Yeah. Other than getting robbed and flooded once or twice, it's been mostly good.
Yeah, a few blights on that.
Yeah, but those are just, learning experiences.
And he recorded the last 2 EPs, I think, from Fragile Canyons, which you've had here on the podcast, I believe.
Yeah,
yeah. Yep. Andy's great.
I love Andy. Yep, great guy. Hey, Andy, if you're in Switzerland listening.
Yeah, no. Is it Switzerland or Sweden?
Switzerland.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I thought it was Sweden.
Yeah, I think they're in Geneva. They're in Geneva right now, I think.
Jealous.
Yes.
Yeah. Wish we were in Geneva right now.
It's got a little baby now.
Yeah.
But so that the recording stuff was kind of, it was not like I think a lot of people get into recording, just recording their bands and their friends' bands, right? Yeah. And then you kind of take on more and more other people's projects over time. So then when Len came to me with this was like a super liberating project to be a part of, because I'd been doing, records for a year or two before that with people who were just like normal clients who would come in, and we wouldn't necessarily be friends or have a prior relationship. And it was kind of me figuring out how to navigate that side of it. And then having him come in, and he had a lot of, gave me quite a bit of latitude in terms of style and choices I was making and stuff. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. What was the self-recording experience like for the rest of the band, kind of coming in and having that liberty where you're not working with someone who, you're working with someone who's in the band, whereas most other times it's someone who's not in the band that you maybe haven't even met before, and kind of gauging that energy, finding a balancing point. Whereas it sounds like obviously a little bit more instantaneous, a lot easier when that person's also playing on the record. They're already kind of in it to win it, But yeah, what was that experience like for the rest of y'all, for both Pilot and even the stuff you've been working on for new music?
Oh man, what was I gonna say? I was just gonna say, yeah, I definitely have had the experience of recording with just kind of like an outside party, and you'll finish a take and you'll be like, "How was that?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, it's fine, whatever." And they're like, "Can we?" They're like looking at their watch, like, "Can we?" That was good. Like, let's keep going. And I feel like it is really nice to have someone who's like, "Yeah, invest it." Like, if it sounds bad, he has to play in the band, like. So I think that's a benefit for sure.
Yeah. I was just going to like maybe shed some light on like the first session we did was when I first met Elise, and I'd met McCoy once, and so it was like I knew Lang, and then Tamara, the guitar player that used to play in the band. So it was like, I feel like it was just fertile for like a lot of reasons of just like getting into a new relationship with people, but also just like really trying to bring your A game to it, like to be professional, but make a great first impression. I don't know. It was interesting, and like I think that's when we did "Don't Wanna Be" and "Discourse," right? Were those the only two of that session? Anyway, yeah. And then I've recorded at a lot of different studios, and kind of I guess I just always felt very comfortable at Casino Time. Just the way. I don't know, the way the lighting is, the way McCoy runs his sessions. It's just, it's a very, very comfortable studio.
Good.
Yeah.
You want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think making an album with McCoy. So yeah, we're friends. That factors in because we're like, we get along and stuff. But I mean, I think we're just kindred spirits, like music spirit. So even if we weren't friends, it would be easy. It's just like when, I don't know, Danger Mouse and James Mercer worked on Broken Bells. It was just like
they're coming back.
Yeah, they're like fans, right? And they speak the same, like, okay, this is kind of idea, and you're like feeding off each other. This is the idea for the album. Like James Mercer wrote these, and Danger Mouse is like, okay, too cool. We're gonna incorporate this aesthetic. It's like it's easy. So when you find someone that you vibe with who like speaks the same musical language, it's like making the record is more enjoyable and fun. So I've definitely worked with some producers and stuff where it's like, okay, we're not.
Yeah.
We're not on the same vision, and then like it comes out, and you probably don't even feel like promoting that record because it's not the way you're, But I'm very proud of this record, and it sounds very good.
Yeah.
And besides McCoy being a friend, I think just musically and as an engineer and stuff, he really executed
aligned very naturally.
Yeah, exactly. So he did really well in that.
Yeah, besides McCoy making us do calisthenics when we're in the studio, it's always a good time.
Yeah, there's less time spent like kind of trying to explain. It's like, no, here's what I want it to sound like, which is almost impossible to do without just like messing with stuff. So
totally, and approach too, and like, yeah, because you're like I don't know, it's like, and you're having fun. You're like enthusiastic, like, okay, cool, and like we were listening to like Pinkerton and stuff. Like, okay, what about this vibe, and what about this vibe? It's like you're conceptualizing the album. You're like, okay, that's the fun part.
Yeah. This is another kind of broad question for everybody. And this could be something like when you're your first time like recording a track in the studio for the album, or first time hearing like a mix of a song. Just what was the time that this band Hyooman really fulfilled what you wanted it to do creatively? What you just like, wow, this is what I want to do with this project. This is what I want to do with these people. Where it could be really anything, but just like a moment where you really were just kind of overcome with, like, yes, this is why I'm doing this. This is what I want this to be like all the time. And not every moment could be like that. And that's just life. But I'm hoping there's at least a moment or two where you really were like plugged in and you're really connecting with this band and the ideas that the musical ideas you're trying to make.
I can take a stab at that. It's kind of saying what Dylan said earlier, which is like when the songwriting is good and the songs are good, like So Proud. I love that song. It just comes together so like easily and beautifully, it feels like. And I don't even remember, like, I sort of remember writing parts for that, but it's just kind of happens like kismet. To me, that's such a cool moment when it just comes together like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm just remembering again back to getting the Dropbox folder from Lang of the demos, and picking my favorite song, and really like putting a lot of thought and energy into trying to put my stamp on one of those songs without overstepping anything. And so for me, I feel like I personally did that with my favorite song of the bunch. It's called In a Bad Way. And so that, I don't know, I feel like I fulfilled doing something where I wrote a line that I wanted to put in, and it was received well. And people were supportive of it, and then listening back, it's there, it's on the record, and it feels good to listen back to it. So yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to try to capture the spirit of your question, like trying to answer that.
Yeah.
So the moment I feel like, okay, this is Hyooman right here.
Yeah.
It's probably when we get like, if we're talking about pilot, I think it's just you're literally like getting the first mixes back to me when McCoy's got time to like tinker with them and you put them together and you hear it. That's also simultaneously the same time where these songs don't feel like they don't belong to me anymore after that point. It feels like, oh, this is like another person who played that, another person who's singing. But it allows me to be like, okay, this is cool. This is a good, like objectively, would I listen to this? And this is kind of a weird sentence because it sounds like I'm patting myself on the back, but I think
I'd be proud of what you made.
Yeah. It's just kind of like, okay, this sounds like someone else singing it, someone else playing it, but it does sound good. Okay, this is kind of what I would want Hyooman to be. So that's on the production side, or like the recording side. I think live, I don't think I've even reached that point yet where it's like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I understand that. Yeah,
always room for improvement. The band is great, but me personally, that one I might have to take a little more time to answer that part. But hopefully, I answered that question.
Yeah, for LP2, we'll maybe have that where like you had that lightning bolt moment live where you're like, yes, this is what I want this to be.
Yeah, if I come back here, hopefully I can answer that question.
I'll phrase it better too.
I think with in a bad way, that's one that we did to cassette, right?
Yeah.
I think that was one of the weird ones for recording where I kind of felt like that, where we had talked a lot about just like weird ways to approach stuff, or like silly, maybe unnecessary experiments we could do in the studio just for fun to see what we could do. And you'd been like receptive to my like litmus test ideas of like, well, what if we just like set your guitar on fire? And you're like, yeah, that could be cool. So I was like, I can do whatever I want. No, so for this one song, I was like, this would be fun to, at least record drums and bass just straight to 4-track cassette and use that as just like the drums and bass track, not as like an effect, like not as like running it in parallel or like throwing a tape plug in. I was like, if we just have it to tape and I just have like a stereo left, right for drums and 1 track of bass, like that'll really tie our hands on some stuff with this song. And I remember when we did that and it sounded like really cool to me, but there was like my studio's in like a mixed use building, and every now and then you'll have a really noisy neighbor or something, and it's 99% of the time easy to work around. But sometimes you get like some artifact from another room creeping in. And this day they were like moving in a bunch of heavy machinery to this new space above us. And so there was like this squeaking noise that got into the recording. And I just remember playing it back and being like, fuck, is everyone going to be like nervous or like mad about that? Because it's like right at the end of the song, there's like this like that like comes through. Yeah. And everyone was like, that's so cool. And I was like, fuck yeah, this band is awesome. Yeah. Like I can do, we can do all sorts of stuff. And it's like, it's so much more a vibe than it is like a perfectionist kind of thing. And I think that makes it really fun for everybody, because we all know that there's like room for experimenting, but that there's also like a kernel of a really good song in there, no matter what. So it's going to be like, the cereal's good. We just got to give it a good package and stuff. You're the Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and that box could be any color, and you don't have a we can do whatever we want. Where's this analogy going to go? No one knows.
Start listing off different kinds of cereal.
Yeah. Could be this cereal.
Wonderful. Well, as I'm sure the listeners deduced, the album Pilot is out now, able to be streamed everywhere. You can buy it on Bandcamp. Any physical copies at the moment?
We do have physical cassettes. Okay. We don't have any CDs, so cassettes, we'll have that up in our Bandcamp shop eventually. So that's definitely a to-do I got to put on. And then, but of course, when we play live, we'll be selling cassettes as well.
Yeah. You've touched on this a little bit, but what does the future hold for Hyooman? I know it's been only like a week or so since the album released, and it sounds like you aren't even taking a break, just really keeping the energy going, working on new music. But is that the primary focus right now, or what else do y'all have on the vision board?
Yeah, so working on album number 2. We started just this past weekend, so this a couple of days ago. The future, working on album 2, like playing good shows that we're rewarding. I think the whole spirit behind this band is the name Hyooman. So it's like, is this still rewarding for us? Are we having fun? I think we're past the point of trying to, like, I don't even want to think about making this a quote career or anything, or making money off of this. Like, I think I've already been disillusioned by that, like back when I was, 5 years ago or something, or when in my early 20s. But yeah, I think the goal is just keeping this rewarding, keeping this fun. And as long as I still have something to say under this thing, as long as we have something, we feel like we can still express ourselves. So working on album 2, and then we'll kind of see what happens from there. But those 3 things have to be in play.
Yeah. The band I talked to yesterday had the same kind of thing, where it's just like, if you're still having fun, if you're enjoying what you're doing, that is the most important thing. Like, so important to not lose sight of that. Exactly. So it's always good to hear people are on that same page. Love that. Cool. I love ending interviews in the same way. I find that y'all have been around the scene for a while. You'll probably have a lot of friends in other bands that you may or may not have even played with. But who are some other local musicians, bands, artists that you want to shout out that you think people should check out? Just spread the love a little bit. If any of you are in other bands, feel free to plug those as well. But if not, just who have you been enjoying lately? Who has some cool stuff?
I'll jump on this right away to give you shout outs, and then someone can jump in. But I love a band called Despondent. Okay. They're kind of new in the scene. I love their music. They have an EP out too that you can listen to. I think it's actually, I don't want to butcher the title. I think it's like Girls 2 or something like that. Oh, the Girls 2. All right. So Despondent. Okay. Bathtub Sig is great. They played at our release show. I love Bathtub Sig. Hillary's a great songwriter. I also love a band called the Key Kids.
Yeah,
they're great.
They're great.
Their album is really good. That full album they have. I also like the Nunnery. A lot of the songwriters that came out of Eau Claire, like Nunnery. Sarah, she's a great songwriter. Hema, I think, is a great songwriter. I like her, and she's got they both have beautiful voices. I know I'm going to miss people, so I'm just going to stop myself here, and then some people can chime in.
If we were listing off every band, we'd be here all day. And that's the beauty, I think, of the Twin Cities of Minnesota, of just what we do here.
But I'm just going to second what Lang said. We just played a show with Bathtub Sig last weekend for our release, and they are so great. And I've been listening to that album like every day. So thanks, Hillary. Great music.
Yeah, we have a friend named Joe Copel, who hasn't been playing much lately, but he put out an album that Lang played bass on, and I really, really liked that album. And I think he's like one of the better songwriters that I've been able to hang out with. So I'm like a big fan of him.
Oh, Jeweler. Who could forget about Jeweler? I love Jeweler.
Yeah,
and
we love Jeweler.
Dylan plays bass in Jeweler.
Yeah,
but
so our friend Michael Voller writes for that band, and we released an album just a little bit like it's going on probably like 6 months or close to a year now, but it maybe a little bit slower process than Hyooman does, but we're working on our next album. But yeah, thanks for the shout out. I have to think about this even longer, so
that's okay.
You can go. I mean, if
anybody needs to like pull out their Bandcamp or Spotify, that's totally cool.
It's so ripe. Like here, like I've just I have talked to people that like were just like out in Portland, and well, Michael actually was just out in Portland. He was like talking about how you think of Portland as, and this isn't any shade. I've only been out there a couple times, but as having, probably like having like a good scene or something. But I think we're pretty lucky as people in Minneapolis to have the music scene that we do. There's like so much, and there's so many great bands.
One other band I gotta mention, Valson, Valson, great band. Michael Gunvalson plays drums in a lot of bands in town. He used to play, he played in L Church and all that stuff. But him and his wife, Emily, are great songwriters. That band is great. I've been a fan of them for a long time. Yeah. So that's another band I want to shout out.
Yeah, I'd like to shout out my friend's band, Wish Wash. They used to be called Witch Watch. Oh. They are recording their first album as Wish Wash, and they're doing it independently at my friend's home studio basement, and it's sounding really good. I'm excited for their release. Yeah,
cool.
I like Grand Couriers are a great, fun local band. They are very thoughtful in like arrangement and approach to how they do stuff, and have a pretty unique aesthetic in terms of the local scene. I feel like they're a little bit more, I don't know, kind of, they're very like, sounds like everything's going through like a phaser or something, but without sounding tacky. Like everything's a little washy and like kind of cool and like psyche, but not in like the super played out psychedelic-y kind of way right now.
It's poppy still.
Yeah, they good pop sensibility for sure. And I've enjoyed sharing bills with them or seeing them play live whenever I've had the chance to.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for all the recommendations. Definitely play that back if you need to. Start writing those band names down. I know I'm going to have to. Cool. Yeah, like we were saying before, Pilot, available everywhere. You can find Hyooman on, I'm guessing, most social medias if you want to, If you want to stay up to date on LP2 when that may come out, maybe quicker than we expect given how quick y'all are working on stuff, which is awesome. But thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday to chat about the album and everything. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for
having us. Thanks for putting another day back in my weekend. Is it only Sunday?
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @EarCoffee. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.